And we've been taking fishing excursions. And we're taking 6 different excursions today. We're taking a 5th excursion. And let me remind you of what we're doing. We are learning from Jesus. Like Jesus called the disciples, he called us, and he said, "Follow me and I'll make you fishers of men." And the next few places they go, we have to assume that, he's teaching them how to fish. And so that's what Jesus is doing for us now. He's teaching us how to fish. And so as we look at this text and talk about this text, I want us to think about how we take what Jesus is teaching us and learn how to fish. So we're going to read a story that starts in Mark chapter 2 and at verse 13. But before we get there, here's a question I want to put past you. What is the social situation that you are most uncomfortable being in? Like, what is the social situation where you are the least comfortable? So for me, hands down, it's wedding receptions. I am so uncomfortable at a wedding reception. And there's lots of reasons for that. Number one, I'm not good at mixing. You know how there are some people that are just good at chit-chat. They're good at sitting at a table with 7 other people and just being able to talk. I'm just not good at that. That is like, I'm a true introvert, which means that kind of thing is actually work for me. It's not, it doesn't come easy. So that's one reason. Another reason is I don't drink. So, and I know drinking doesn't go on at every wedding reception, but it does at most. And I don't drink, so that part of it's not very fun for me. Third, even though I love dancing, I am way too inhibited to dance. So I will go to a wedding reception and I'll sit at a table and I'll watch people dance and I'll think, I wish I could do that. And I think I know in heaven I'll do that because it's in here somewhere, like dancing is in there somewhere, and it'll come out once I get to heaven. But I'm way too self-conscious, way too inhibited for you to see me dancing, or for anyone to. So those 3 things combined make wedding reception. Plus, you couple those 3 things with the fact that I really, for the most part, any wedding that I do, and I go to the reception, I really don't know that many people. Like, these aren't my family members. They're not necessarily my friends. These aren't people that I know and hang with. And then there's this other dreaded thought. Well, it's not a dreaded thought. It's a dreaded memory of a wedding reception that I did go to, and I came to learn later on that they were just waiting for me to leave so that they could bring out the good stuff. So I go to this wedding reception, and there's some appetizers, and so there's beer going on, and then it's all fine. I don't care. It's all fine. So I hung around for a little while, and I left. And then I found out later on that, like, they were just waiting for me to leave so they could bring out the hard stuff, so they could bring out the good stuff, so they could bring out, I don't know what, the vodka, and I don't know what. So that's kind of an awful feeling, isn't it? To look back and think, like, everybody kept looking over at me at my table thinking, oh, shoot, he's still here. So that kind of thought makes wedding receptions, except for yours, wedding receptions are my uncomfortable social situation. I feel like I don't belong. What about for you? What's your uncomfortable social situation? Where don't you like being? Where do you seem out of place? So we're going to look at a story in Mark chapter 2 today where we might expect Jesus to be out of place. We might expect this to be a place where Jesus doesn't quite fit in. We're going to look at a situation where this might be a social gathering where Jesus is uncomfortable, but he's not. But he's not. And I think he's got several followers, several disciples with him that wonder, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And what we're doing here is Jesus is about to teach us how to be present in these kind of situations and how to bring the gospel to to these kind of situations. Are you with me? So here we go. Mark chapter 2. Oh, wow. I opened right to it, even though I didn't have it marked. All right, so here we go. Once again, Jesus went out beside the lake, and a large crowd came to him. So we've learned already, just in chapter 1, that Jesus is pretty comfortable around the lakeside. We have no idea why, but he was. He was there a lot, and he seemed to be chatty with all those. So the lakeside that's a comfortable place for him to be. A large crowd came to him, and he began to teach. As he was walking along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus. So just so you know, these are very Jewish names. These are very Jewish names. This is a Jewish man raised in a Jewish family, and he's sitting at the tax collector's booth, a non-Jewish place to be. Follow me, Jesus told him, and Levi got up and followed him. Okay, so right away, we got this deal going on where Jesus is approaching someone who is very much unlike himself or the others that are with him. That's your first fill-in, by the way. There are people that are unlike me, just as there were people that were unlike Jesus and unlike his initial followers, that you know what? They might be receptive to following Jesus. Levi is a man out of place. So he's a Jewish man raised by a Jewish family, and he's working for the Romans. So you have to understand that the Jews hated the Romans because they were the oppressors, they were the occupiers, they were the ones who were controlling the people, the nation of Israel. And so the Jews hated the Romans, and the Romans just kind of despised the Jews like you would despise a pebble in your shoe. Like they didn't think Jews were all that important, but they sure were a nuisance. And here's Levi taking money from his people, his tribe, his family, his nation, taking money from them and giving it to the Romans. Levi, who knows why? Like, why would he do such a thing? Was he greedy? Was he needy? Did he just decide to give in to the dominant culture, the dominant Roman culture? We don't know why. But for Levi, there was the Jewish way, and there was the Roman way, and Jesus comes along, and he discovers that Jesus is neither. He's not the Jewish way, and he's not the Roman way. Jesus is the Jesus way. Follow me. And Levi follows him, even though Levi is unlike Jesus. So let's get that there are people who are unlike me, there are people that are unlike Jesus, seemingly, that would still be receptive to following Jesus. All right, so let's read on in the story. Verse 15, while Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and with his disciples, for there were many there who followed him. When the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with sinners and tax collectors? So the Pharisees are taking a look at what Jesus is doing, finding himself a place at the table and a place in the home of, like, how many times did you hear the words tax collectors and sinners? Like, you're even going to hear it some more. These are people that the Pharisees, that the teachers of the law, that the Jewish elite deemed unlikely to be receptive to following Jesus. And so there are, and this is true for us, there are people that are that we think are unlikely to be receptive, but they still follow Jesus. You see, these people, the friends of Levi, the tax collectors and sinners, these are people that in the minds of the Jewish elite had been discounted, as in they don't count. They don't count. They would be, in our modern era, they would be victims of the cancel culture. Like we canceled them out, we got rid of them. You know, the most damning words that I think we can say about other people is that there is no point. There is no point. So in all the churches that I've ever pastored, I have always found someone or some ones in every church who are going to look at another group of people or another type of person and say, oh, you know what, there's really no point in trying to reach them because they're never going to come to church. They're never going to become Christians. They're just not interested. See, these are the people that we have discounted, that we have canceled out, that we have said, you know what, there's just not any likelihood that they would become followers of Jesus. That's who these tax collectors and sinners are. They are the unlikely ones. And Jesus goes right to them instead of discounting them. All right, so in verse 17 then it says, so I want you to notice kind of what happens here. The Pharisees ask the disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? But the disciples don't answer. I don't know if Jesus doesn't give them a chance, or if they hem-haw around a little bit, or if Jesus has got to jump in because whatever they say is going to be ridiculous. I don't know. But instead of Jesus allowing the disciples to answer the Pharisees as who was asked, Jesus jumps right in and he says these words. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. This is verse 17. It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. So, observant Jews in the first century, and before and after that as well, but here in Jesus' time, observant Jews, like the Pharisees, they were waiting for the Messiah. They had the promises of the prophets. If they would have had candles, they would have lit them as well. And they would have lit the candle of hope, saying, someday Messiah will come. So these observant Jews who were waiting for the Messiah had this idea, like it was one of their tenets. Like what they said was, if every Jew would keep the law, would be Torah observant perfectly, just for one day, the Messiah would come. That's a pretty clever idea to come up with. I mean, it's not in the Bible or anything like that, but this is the tenet that they had. This is the idea that they came up with. Like, if every Jew could be Torah observant perfectly, if they could keep the law perfectly, every Jew, just for one day. Like, this seems possible, doesn't it? Like, you would think, like, oh, maybe we can figure this out. Everybody do everything. Like, maybe everyone just stays in their home. I don't know what. If we keep the law perfectly for one day, the Messiah would come. So do you understand then that they look at tax collectors and sinners, Jewish people of Jewish descent, like Levi, but still a tax collector. They look at the tax collectors and sinners as these are the people that are ruining the nation. They're ruining our chance. Like Messiah would come and we would get rid of the Romans and we would self-rule under the Messiah. We would be God's people again. But these people are ruining that. They're destroying our chance for the Messiah to come. And so they look at these people as undeserving of Jesus. They are people that they deemed undeserving, and yet undeserving people still follow Jesus. Undeserving people still follow Jesus. You know, this statement that Jesus utters to them. I've come not for the righteous, but for the sinner. This is a blow to them. It's a blow to the Pharisees. I mean, it hits them hard. So, today, as Matt said, this is the first Sunday of Advent. We lit this candle of hope over here. Advent, I'll remind you again, as I do every year, the word Advent means coming. It means coming. So this is the 4-week season in which the church traditionally has celebrated the coming of the Messiah as well as anticipating the coming of the Messiah. This is one of the beautiful things, but it's hard to get a hold of. Like, we celebrate the fact that the Messiah has come, and we anticipate the Messiah's coming. Well, which is it? Well, it's both. It's both. So here were these people that were judged to be unlike us, unlike me, unlike Jesus. These are people that were deemed unlikely to be interested in following Jesus. These were people that were deemed unworthy or undeserving of being in the company of the Messiah. And here's Jesus, the world's one true King, the Messiah, right in the midst of them. Now, I want you to think how Christmas this is. Jesus was out of his element, right? Like he left the side of the Father. He left heaven, his element. So he's out of his element, heaven, yet perfectly at home, earth. This is the incarnation. The Son of God left heaven and came to earth. This is Christmas, that God visits a world that he had fashioned to be his dwelling place, and yet it became hostile to him. The world became hostile to God. And so he visits this same world. And what it says of Jesus, this is the way the gospel writer John describes it. John says that he came unto his own, but his own did not receive him. His own rejected him. But to those who did receive him, I don't know, the tax collectors and sinners, those that were unlike him and unlikely and undeserving, to those who did receive him, he gave the right to become the children of God. All right, so what do we learn from this? Excuse me. It still came through pretty loud, didn't it? Sorry. Okay, so what do we do with this? All right, I think we can learn a few things. I think Jesus is teaching us a few things about how we take the gospel into the world. Number one, go places that are out of your element. Go places that are out of your element. Remember what we said. Jesus was out of his element, and then he led his disciples into this place that well, in the Pharisees' mind, it should have been out of their element. So go to places where you can actually meet people that you wouldn't meet otherwise. So last week, you might remember, Matt had us write down the names of family members and co-workers and neighbors. So these are people that we are typically around. So these are people that we've learned to be comfortable with. So we wrote those names down, and Tuesday at staff meeting, just so you know, we did pray for all of those names, for all of those people, and we'll continue to do so, and we hope you will do so. So those are people that we might not feel uncomfortable being with. But today, Jesus is doing something different. Like, he's already taken them to those places. He's taken them to the home, and he's taken them to the synagogue. And so he's taken them to places where they were already comfortable. Now he's taking them somewhere where he's out of his element, where they're out of their element, where they're uncomfortable. So go to places where you can actually meet people that you wouldn't meet otherwise. All right, so listen to this. A few months ago, I'm not even remembering when it was for sure, but a few months ago, I participated in a demonstration. So much to the consternation of several people within the congregation, I went and I was a part of the Stand Up Together demonstration that was on Main Street in Titusville. Now, I got to tell you, like, demonstrations are out of my element already. Like, I'm not much of a demonstrator. I don't know how many demonstrations you've participated in. I'm not much of a demonstrator. The only other demonstration I was ever a part of was 30 years ago. About 30 years ago, I participated in a pro-life demonstration down in Pittsburgh. I went and sat in front of an abortion clinic as a part of an event. It was called Operation Rescue, where we just, like I said, we sat in front of abortion clinics. So I did that once, and then 30 years later, I'm out on the streets in Titusville holding up signs that say, you matter, love your neighbor, overcome evil with good. I did it. I participated in this demonstration, number one, because I knew the people that organized it, and I care about the people that organized that demonstration. I was also there because I do care about some of the very things that they care about and were demonstrating for. But I was also there. Here's the important part. I was also there because I was really excited that I was going to get to meet people and be with people that in the ordinary comings and goings of my life, I would not see or be with. Some of them I knew, but many that were there, I was meeting for the first time. This was going to be a place where I was out of my element and out of my comfort zone. But we need to go to those places so that we can rub shoulders and be with people that are, in fact, unlike us, but maybe not so unlikely to follow Jesus as we might suppose. All right. Secondly, intentionally go to places where you're out of your element. Secondly, see people as people, not as categories. See people as people, not as categories. So this is a really bad time, I think, in our social history as a nation. We live in a time where we categorize people and we leave them there and we judge them accordingly. So we label people as liberal or conservative, and if you're not the one that we are, you're out. We see people as black or white. We see people as redneck or hipster, and we have millennials, and we have boomers, and we have XYZers, and we don't even know what comes next because Z is the last letter of the alphabet, so who knows where we go there. We have tax collectors and sinners. So we categorize people just the same way that the Pharisees were doing. We put people in these categories, and depending on what category we put them in, we think of them as unworthy. So we've got to stop categorizing people and then writing them off and then canceling them because of whatever category they're in. One of the things that makes the church an amazing place is that we are going to commune with people. We're going to share the bread, share the cup with people with whom we are very different from. But it doesn't matter in the church. It doesn't matter in Christ. So we just need to see people as people. All right, so go to places that are out of your element, and you already know what that place is because I asked you that right up front. See people as people, not as categories. So now I'm talking to myself, okay? The next thing we need to do is just relax. We need to relax. Like the next time I almost said the next time I have to go to a wedding reception, I ought to say, like, the next time I get to go to a wedding reception, like, I just need to relax. Like, chill out, Tim. Like, this isn't life or death, or death especially. This is just people, you know? Like, just go there. Don't be nervous. This is one of the beautiful things about Jesus. Jesus, in whatever situation he's in, whatever social situation he's in especially, he never seems to be nervous. He never seems to be insecure. He's never uptight. He's never stressed, no matter who he's with. Like, just relax. Just relax. Again, I'm talking to myself. Secondly, because I'm going to sweat no matter what. Secondly, receive. A little bit later on in the gospel, we're going to see Jesus sending his disciples out on a mission. And he's going to send them to all these towns, and he's going to tell them to go into town. And one of the things he's going to say to them is, when you find someone who receives you, when you find someone who will give you hospitality, when you find that person, like, eat whatever they lay in front of you. Just receive whatever they're giving you. All right, so when we're in these places where we're out of our element, when we're with people who are unlike us, we're finding that, well, you know, people they've got some of their own ideas, they've got some of their own thoughts, they got some of their own opinions, and they have their own stories. Receive those. And what I'm trying to say here is listen to those. Listen without any intent of arguing. Listen without any design on trying to answer back. Like, don't listen with the answer going on in your mind. Like, just listen. Listen to understand. Listen to appreciate where they've come from so far and where their story is. You know, there are people that we would deem unlikely to be followers of Jesus, but we haven't heard their whole story. We need to hear their story. And we don't even need to have an answer for how their story goes. So several years ago, I had this really great opportunity to talk to a young woman who was sharing with me her story. And the ground rules were, I was just going to listen. Like, this was the ground rules of the conversations I was having. And I just was going to listen. We weren't going to engage in a debate of any kind whatsoever. I just wanted to know them. So I'm listening to this young woman tell her story. And her story, in part, was she was a server in Perkins. So this tells you how long ago it was. She was a server in Perkins. And she would tell this story about how there was a certain group of people that would come into Perkins every Sunday after church, and they would not allow her to be their server. If that was her table or their time, they would ask the manager to please send them another server. They didn't want this particular young woman serving them. And the reason was she had this necklace. And this necklace had a star on it with 6 points, 2 triangles, you know, one way and one the other way. And when they saw this necklace, they thought that the star that she was wearing was a satanic emblem. So they thought she was a Satanist. She's telling me this story. They thought I was a Satanist. And I said, oh. Well, and then you should ask questions, you know. So then I asked the question, well, what does your star signify? She said, well, I'm not a Satanist, I'm a pagan. Oh. I don't know where to go then, you know. It's like, oh, you're not a Satanist, you're a pagan. And she explained to me what pagan was in its technical terms. And so again, like, I'm just listening, and I said, wow. We learned some time ago, we read this book by a guy named Jim Henderson, who said sometimes you enter into conversations with people, and the best way to respond to what they're telling you is just wow. Wow is a great word to have in your repertoire there. And so she says, yeah, I'm not a Satanist, I'm a pagan. Wow. Yeah. So here's the thing. she's not a follower of Jesus that I know of yet. But let me ask you this. The path to her becoming a follower of Jesus, do you think it's more likely to go through a table of churchgoers in Perkins who won't let them be her server, or through someone who just lets her explain what she believes? I'm going to put my money on the latter. And like I said, she's not a follower of Jesus yet. I wish I had this really awesome story to tell you about how I led her to Jesus, but I didn't. But we can at least talk. But the people at Perkins can't even talk to her because they won't receive what she has to say. Are you with me? Do you understand where I'm going here? Okay, so we're out of our element. We're seeing people as people. We're relaxed. We're receiving. And here's the last thing. We're inviting. I think a great line, after wow, a great line to have in your repertoire is like, hey, wouldn't you be interested in being a follower of Jesus? Like, don't you want to follow Jesus? Like, I'm thinking this all the time. Like, why not? Like, yeah, I want to follow Jesus. Like, wouldn't you want to follow Jesus? So this is what's remarkable to me about this story. And I think this is the most remarkable thing. Listen to the words that were used. Jesus says, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have come. Well, what should he have said? I have come to heal the sick, not the healthy. But he didn't say that. He said, I've come not to call the righteous, but the sick. I've come to call. I've come to invite. We might have expected the word heal, but he used the word call. This ought to be like a sigh of relief to us. Like, we find ourselves often in the fix mode, right? Like, I need to fix this person. Here's a beautiful thing for us. We don't need to fix people before we invite them to follow Jesus. So I have this friend who is a gay person, and I had this conversation once about an article that he read. So you might not be aware of this, but right now, a significant number, I'll say, a significant number of evangelical Christians have changed their minds about homosexual lifestyles and have said that after further review, they believe that a homosexual lifestyle is compatible with following Jesus, with a Christian lifestyle. So he read this article by a wonderful writer, somebody that I read as well. And I had actually read this article a year before he showed it to me. And the article was a story about how she changed her mind, about how she came to think otherwise than the traditional Christian view of homosexuality practice. And she writes in a lovely way. She writes in a convincing way. And so he sent the article to me and asked me if I would respond to it. Like, what do you think of this? So I thought she was wrong in what she said. And I had a lot of reasons why. And so what I did was, this is just a fair warning to you. Like, you don't want to ask me questions because I don't have short answers. I've got really long, I've got answers, all right? I think I've got all the answers. I've got answers, but none of them are short. And so I respond to this article in a very lengthy way, like I'm just writing this, responding to the things she said, almost paragraph by paragraph, appreciating what she had to say and how she had to say it, but describing why she was wrong. So I got to the end of my response to my friend, and I wrote down this utterance to him that surprised me as I typed it. Like, so do you ever have this happen to you where you utter something or you say something, and it's like, oh, where did that come from? Like, that's like I didn't premeditate this sentence. It came out of my fingers onto the pad and onto the computer screen. And what I said to my friend was, I'm not trying to make you straight. I'm trying to make you Christ-like. I think that's right. I just want him to follow Christ. I can't fix him. I'm not going to make him straight. This is a place where Christians have failed tremendously. We thought that we somehow could make people straight or make people whatever, make people more conformed, make people more like us. Because people like us follow Jesus. So if we could just make people like us, they'll follow Jesus. Maybe they can follow Jesus before that. Maybe they can follow Jesus, and we don't need to try and fix them. You know, think about these guys that follow Jesus. Like, they all needed fixing, right? Like you got this guy named Simon the Zealot. Like, he's a nationalistic idolater. Like, he worships the nation. We need to do some fixing there, I think. But he's following Jesus before he's fixed. And he's got Peter, who is Peter, and he's got James and John, two men who apparently have anger issues, and they crop up from time to time. Like, you don't think wanting to call down fire on a couple of villages is an anger issue. Yeah. So they have anger issues. And then you got Thomas, who's got this reputation of being a doubter, and that's at the end of his time with Jesus. Fixing doesn't have to come first. Following does. Following does. So I think we can just invite people who are unlike us, who seem unlikely to be followers, who are undeserving even to be followers, because, oh, right, that's me too, isn't it? I'm undeserving to be a follower of Jesus. So I can, like, hey, don't you want to follow Jesus? And so Jesus invites these tax collectors and sinners, and whatever all they did, he's comfortable being with them, and he invites them to follow him. I want to say that I believe in the power of the Holy Spirit to transform us into the people that Jesus wants us to be. And he does that as we follow him. Like, he's still fixing me. But he does that while I follow, not before. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing for all of us. Like, aren't you glad that we can follow Jesus and just let him fix us, change us, transform us along the way?